First up is ammo adjustment. So now the ammo bins in any sheet can be manually incremented and decremented. You cannot go above the capacity and you can't go below 0, but you should be able to adjust these as you will. Ideally, it would be nice to be able to set these kind of ad hocly. So if you have, let's say, machine gun ammo and you only want to like cut that in half or something, you could, I don't know, spin a dial, but that's going to have to wait. At least this way, you'll be able to kind of manually handle a little bit of kind of rapid fire for ultra auto cannon. So if you want to tick off more stuff, you can do that. Always you can kind of adjust your heat as you will manually to account for rapid fire if you want to do that. All right, next one. Oh, actually, that brings me to this. There are a couple weird cases where the kind of scrolling might get a little borked, and I've solved some of those. But if you run into them, there is this kind of reset zoom button now at the bottom. You just tap that, and it'll clear things up. The zoom will also reset if you go between tabs. That's always been the case, but now you can kind of bump it if you need to manually. All right, next up is the stationary movement mode listed up here in the overview. Now, if you select stationary as movement mode, it'll highlight that to indicate it, but there's also a change with how these guys work. So normally, you could kind of override your movement mode by just selecting the one you want and setting the hexes moved. And it used to be that if you would tap this, it would become, you would go into stationary. Now you just tap stationary and it goes like that. If you are in, say, running and you tap running again, you can just change the hexes moved as opposed to kind of toggling it off and on. All right, next up, the calculator. So you've probably seen this. There's been kind of a visual refresh of this guy to make it a little bit more clear. Along with that, there's been a slight behavior change. And it used to be that this button was always enabled. Now this one is also disabled until these guys are set, like so. Now, one catch with this is it's kind of possible to get into a peculiar situation where maybe for some reason you've stopped putting this information in and closed the calculator, and this button is disabled. I think there may have been some problems where people either failed to put in kind of all the information, or something else was kind of missing. They saw the yellow button and they would go to attack, and then shots wouldn't come across correctly because the range or attack direction or something like that was not there. So now you have to put this information in, no matter how you're pushing fire, essentially. All right, next up, in the obligation strip, there are now markers for phases. So right now there's this like yellow W that indicate that I'm in the weapons phase. And now, of course, I can fire. If I fire, I'm fired, but I'm still in the weapons phase because we can be resolving damage here like so. And then over here we have the physical phase that's kind of pushed to the right-hand side, and we have this next phase button. So the idea here is that the system is a little bit more strict with tracking what phase it thinks you're in, and it also is a more explicit with what phase it thinks you're in. So along with that come things like this next phase button, where you can kind of intentionally bump it here like so, and also a little bit more prompting around things like this. So I want to say I want to go to the next phase, but it will ask me, are all the weapons complete? Say yes, and there we go. You'll notice that the red damage is gone. Essentially, the red damage is phase damage, and so all that red stuff was last phase, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. Now, in some cases, that next phase button may not appear, especially if there is outstanding piloting checks to be done. Essentially, performing the piloting check is kind of a declaration that you're done with the phase. And so when you do these guys, whether you fail or dismiss them or roll, it should advance to the next phase automatically because that's kind of the end of the phase that you are in. So here, the next phase button is back, but it's over on the heat phase. One thing that's really helpful is bug reports. So if you run into anything weird or peculiar, please shoot me a message either through the form on the website let's see, I think it's down here, or shoot me an email at info@flechs.net. All right, thank you very much.